Alrighty, everybody, this is Wes. I am back, and hopefully the sound is up to par here. I threw off my rhythm last week by messing up my voice and throwing off some muscles, knocking off the rust literally in my. Oh, geez, there's kids everywhere outside. Oh, boy. Ah, hell with it. It'll add to the ambiance. I threw my voice out last week while I was recording the project. Just some amateur mistakes that I made to get back into the swing of things, not doing proper warm-ups, and so on and so forth, not using my diaphragm more instead of my throat for volume, your basic stuff. I really appreciate anybody who was listening to this so far. I'm getting right back on track. Today we'll be doing Chapter 4, Panic at Paramount. I appreciate everybody who is listening, and I will do my best to make sure I don't have any distracting things going on. And while I did do a quick YouTube search, it turns out that I am far from being any kind of a internet sensation. So it's clear that this project is not going to become incredibly huge overnight, and I don't expect it to. I really don't. So with that said, let's get right into this, and I'm going to get back on track here. And as just a quick reminder, some of the subject matter may be vulgar, dark themes. So mentally, if you're not prepared to hear this right now, go ahead and stop and come back when you are ready, because certain things even I won't predict will happen. Chapter 4. Panic at Paramount. While Arbuckle sweltered through his second trial in San Francisco, and Hollywood simmered in the glare of inflamed public opinion, a scandal broke right in the center of the film colony. On the night of February 1st, 1922, someone killed William Desmond Taylor in the studio of his bungalow court apartment on Alvarado Street in LA's placid Westlake district. Taylor was chief director of famous Players Lasky, a Paramount subsidiary. Paramount, which had its hand full with Arbuckle, could now thank its unlucky star for another scandal. The body was discovered by the following morning by Taylor's Negro manservant, Henry Peavy. Taylor lay on his back on the floor of the study as if in a trance, his arms straight out, a chair fallen over his legs. Robbery was not the motive. His large, lucky diamond ring, he had worn it since the success of his first film, The Diamond from the Sky, still shone on his finger. Peavy ran, emitting a soprano scream, "They've killed Massa! They've killed Massa!" as reported in the Los Angeles Examiner, waking up the other residents of the court, including Edna Purviance, who immediately placed a phone call to Mabel Normand. Mabel called Charles Eaton, something, general manager of famous Players Lasky, who in turn called the Paramount super chief, Adolph Zucker. Edna placed another call to Paramount star Mary Miles Minter. She could not be reached. The message was left with her mother, Mrs. Charlotte Shelby. None of these saw fit to notify the police. They all had urgent business to attend to first. I want to pause for a second and just let people know, if I say anything here that is written down that might be kind of considered offensive today, I'm going to continue doing so because this is what the author had written. So if anybody is offended, please forgive me, because I don't want to take a chance on misreading or messing up the author's intent. And again, this was a man who did grow up in a different era, and certain words are not what we use anymore. Mabel rushed to Taylor's to retrieve a bundle of her correspondence. Charles Eaton rushed to Taylor's to get rid of all of the illegal liquor. Dead or alive, a Paramount director must not be found violating the 18th Amendment. Adolph Zucker rushed to Taylor's to clean up any signs of sexual hanky-panky. Charlotte Shelby rushed to her daughter Mary with the news, which precipitated an unseemly match of shouted hysterics. Henry Peavy, the soprano manservant, triapsed up and down sedate Alvarado Street like a demented thing, incessantly screaming, "They've killed Massa! They've killed Massa!" until, much later, some neighbor phoned the cops to come collect the crazy coon. I don't want to say that. Representatives of the law did eventually arrive. When the police arrived at Taylor's bungalow later that morning, a busy scene was underway. Merry flames blazed in the fireplace, fed compromising papers by Paramount's top brass, while Edna Purviance looked on. Mabel Normand, the Senate heroine, was poking into nooks and crannies for the misplaced correspondence. The still eye of the hurricane was Taylor's corpse on the study floor, 38 bullets in his heart. There might have been some hope of solving the enigma if the Paramount bigwigs had not swooped down on the dead man's house to cosmeticize the scene. It is more than likely that significant clues were incinerated by Zucker and Ebton in Taylor's fireplace. Ooh, things are getting juicy. Zucker, Eaton, and company did not, however, have time to complete their house cleaning. When the homicide squad descended on the Taylor bungalow, all kinds of things came to light. The cops uncovered a cache of pornographic photographs hidden behind some scenarios at the bottom of a drawer. These whimsical portraits of the dead man and the identifiable company of several female stars confirmed his reputation as a Lothario, if not his tact. Several prominent actresses were questioned, including Mary Pickford, whose large framed photograph inscribed to Taylor was found. The photographic curiosities contributed nothing to solve the case. Mary Pickford said she would pray. When Mabel Normand was questioned about her early morning browse, she candidly admitted that she had been looking for letters she had written to Taylor to prevent them being examined by outsiders. She commented, quote, "I admit this, but it was only for one purpose, to prevent terms of affection from being misconstrued." End quote. The letters, side note, were later found tucked into one of Taylor's riding boots. Further sleuthing in the Taylor study shook loose a letter hidden between the pages of White Stains, a book of erotica by Aleister Crowley. When the scented page fluttered to the floor, it was seen not to have been penned by Mabel Normand, after all. The pale pink stationery was monogrammed MMM, and eyebrows were immediately raised. Mary Miles Winter was Paramount's answer to Mary Pickford, curls and all, an embodiment of demure innocence. Yet here in her handwriting was a mash note which ran, "Dearest, I love you, I love you, I love you." Several X's, no zeros. Yours always, Mary. When questioned, Mary confirmed her ardor. "I did love William Desmond Taylor. I loved him deeply and tenderly with all the admiration a young girl gives to a man with the poise and position of Mr. Taylor." MMM was 22 and Taylor 50. At the garish, crowded funeral, a distraught Mary Miles Minter approached the bier and kissed Taylor's corpse full on the lips. She then caused a considerable stir by rising to announce that the corpse had spoken. "He whispered something to me. It sounded like, 'I shall love you always, Mary.'" Wow. The circumstances of the Taylor murder were so bizarre that they have been incorporated into several mystery novels and movie scenarios. And all the real-life cast were characters, even Taylor's soprano manservant, Peavy, who liked to crochet doilies and scarves. Then there was Taylor's butler, Sands. He was missing. It turned out he was the director's younger brother, a dubious figure with a larcenous past on the lam from the law. Taylor had coached him to acquire an impeccably servile demeanor, his disguise further enhanced by bleached hair. Sands, suspected for passing forged checks and possible involvement in his brother's death, had vanished, never to be seen again. It turned out that both Mary Miles Minter and Mabel Normand had paid Taylor a visit the night of the crime. Mabel was the last person to see him alive. As a parting gift, the ever-thoughtful Taylor had given Mabel the latest volume of Fraud. Oh, I'm an idiot. The latest volume of Freud. I hope I'm doing that right. We're going to move on. I didn't write this. 10 minutes after the departure of Mabel's limousine, a neighbor, Mrs. Faith Cole McLean, heard a loud noise and went to the window overlooking Taylor's bungalow. Later she told the police, quote, "I wasn't sure then that it was a shot at all, but I distinctly heard an explosion. Then I glanced out of my window and saw a man leaving the house and going down the walk. I suppose it was a man. It was dressed like a man, but funny looking. It was dressed in a heavy coat with a muffler around the chin and a cap pulled down over the eyes. But it walked like a woman, quick little steps and broad hips and short legs." End quote. Could this have been Mary Miles Minter's jealous mother, Mrs. Shelby, in drag? She owned a .38 caliber pearl-handled revolver and had been seen practicing shooting it shortly before the murder. Gee, that sounds like a dead giveaway to me. Afterwards, she was allowed to slip away to Europe without question. It was an enigma that would even have baffled SS Van Dyne. The murder threw Hollywood into an uproar. The incident was particularly shattering to the film colony since Taylor, a social figure of prominence, had been president of the Screen Directors Guild. A handsome, worldly fellow, bibliophile, and suppressed bachelor with a supposed bachelor with a reputation as a ladies' man, he was in reality William Dean Tanner, who had vanished from his New York home in 1908, leaving a wife and daughter. It soon came out that in his Hollywood incarnation he had been carrying on simultaneous affairs with Mabel Normand, Mary Miles Minter, and Charles Shelby, Mary's mother. This quadrangle held all the tabloids could desire in the way of sensation. The papers also insinuated that Taylor had been the cause of the suicide of Zelda Crosby, a famous player's screenwriter with whom he had been intimate. While ransacking Taylor's bungalow, the inspectors came upon a more esoteric aspect of the director's dalliances. In a locked closet of his bedroom was found a unique collection of Hollywood lingerie. Lacy, deluxe ladies' undies, each tagged with initials and a date. It seemed that lucky dog Desmond made a point of retaining a souvenir of each sentimental encounter. When a pale pink nightgown of filmy silk, delicately embroidered MMM was found, Mary Miles Minter's sweet virginal image was ruined and her career smashed. In forced retirement, MMM turned to the consolation of comfort eating and rapidly put on weight. The Drums of Fate was her last picture. As if all this did not suffice, there was a dope angle to the case. Reporters stated that Taylor had recently been visiting the queer meeting places in LA and Hollywood, dens where strange, effeminate men and particularly masculine women dressed in kimonos sat in circles, where guests were served marijuana, opium, and morphine, the drugs wheeled in on tea carts. It was soon revealed that Taylor's good friend Mabel Normand, whose antic clowning for Senate gained her fans by the millions, owed her effervescence at least in part to cocaine and company. Mabel's monthly expenditures for cokie was in the neighborhood of $2,000, blackmail included. On one occasion, Taylor had confronted a blackmailer who was hounding Miss Normand, and in the ensuing sidewalk, fisticuffs knocked him flat. When she became involved in the dope angle of the Taylor case, it was Normand's turn to retire from the screen. Susanna, the Senate feature that she had just completed, was withdrawn after it had been boycotted. The epitaph to her career was an editorial in Good Housekeeping, suggesting Mabel was too adulterated for family consumption. The delightful comedienne of so many Keystone comedies were no longer an apple in the eye of her former fans, though Mabel Normand and Mary Miles Minter stood out as the principal scapegoats in the Taylor case. All of Hollywood felt the heat. Howls went up around the country at this new proof of film-landed depravity. In 1922 was a rough year for the movie industry. Stacks of uncomplimentary press notices continued to pour in. Denunciations rang out from the pulpits. It was not divine wrath the magnates feared, but retaliation at the box office. The specter of collective boycott by women's clubs, church organizations, and anti-vice committees seemed formidable. With the professional Puritans clamoring for a cleanup, something had to be done to improve the movie's image, and fast. And that is the end of Chapter 4.